Welcome to Post-Burnout.com interviews. My name is Aaron Kavanagh and I'm the website's founder and editor-in-chief. Post-Burnout.com is a culture website dedicated to venerating burnt-out artists the world over. Our interviews are mainly recorded to be transcribed, but every now and again we release the audio in a series we call Post-Burnout.com interviews. If you enjoy what we do, be sure to subscribe. In this edition of Post-Burnout.com interviews, we speak with vocalist Neil Scott and drummer Nathan Searle of the Bristol alt-pop act Adult Leisure. They talk about forming over Zoom during the pandemic, their new single Bad Idea, their versatile approach to music and songwriting, the correct pronunciation of their band name, their upcoming EP, and more. Yeah, so the first thing I wanted to ask was, obviously your name, it has two words that have kind of various pronunciations. So I just wanted to check: is it adult or adult, and is it leisure or leisure?
It's adult leisure. We would pronounce it adult leisure.
Yeah.
But yeah, because funny enough, adult leisure, I don't know, it doesn't have the same ring. But yeah, adult leisure. Yeah.
We've had some American publications, haven't we, calling us adult leisure. Absolutely fine. We're cool with that, you know.
What was the kind of inspiration, I guess, for the name of the band?
The inspiration for the name?
Yeah.
So when we were sort of looking for names, there's a song by Bowie called Teenage Wildlife.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, I'm just going to nick that and maybe change it to like Adult Wildlife. And then, so that's how we got the adult. And then the leisure part, I'm not quite sure how we settled on that, but we kind of liked it because it sounds like it should be rude, but it's not. Like, if you actually look at it, it's completely like, it's innocent, but it sounds like, you know, you tell certain people the name and they think, God, it's a bit naughty, that adult leisure. I think it's because it's so close to adult pleasure, which is rude.
Very naughty. Very naughty.
Very naughty. But yeah, it was just a combination. We liked it though, because I think for us it just meant like the as you get older, the mundane things in life that you get to do that aren't necessarily fun, but you consider them your little getaway or break. It's all these things are like adult leisures where you kind of, you know, rather than being childlike and having all these massive dreams, you kind of just go, oh, do you know what I like? I like having a lie in on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And it's like, there you go, that's your little adult leisure there. That's your little boring remedial thing you get to look forward to as you're older.
So when it came to the formation of the band, my understanding is that you guys were in three different projects that kind of would often play shows together in Bristol, and then during the pandemic, you guys started Adult Leisure in lockdown in kind of over Zoom like this.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what happened. I mean, we've actually known each other for a long time. I'd say probably over 10 years, and yeah, we're all kind of from Bristol. Yeah, all in different projects, and I think we've probably all been out of projects for a couple of years. And then I had a text off of Neil one day saying, "Do you want to do something?" Because he was doing something with James and Dave, and it just kind of went from there, really.
Yeah,
and it's just been growing from there.
And how do you think this band kind of differs from the other projects that you guys have been involved with?
I think it's the most sort of cohesive unit I've ever been a part of. Like everyone, I think that sometimes you're in bands and for whatever reason things don't work out, or, you know, understandably life gets in the way of things. Whereas in this group, it's kind of like everyone is on completely the same wavelength, which is like, we're gonna give it like a shot. Do you know what I mean? This is like our chance to like really go out and push it, and to have like three other people all in the same mindset, and then to see what we've done in such a short amount of time compared to, like, you know, I think we were all in our old bands for at least 4, 5, 6 years, and what we've achieved in Adult Leisure in not even a year completely eclipses what any of us did previously. Mm-hmm. So I think it just goes to show kind of like, if you are all on the same page and you know that the quality of material is good, and I think having I think when my old band Moon Club was like the comparisons all the time. We used to get compared to 1975 all the time, just because we sounded a little bit 80s, and it's like that we were kind of doomed from there, because all of a sudden it was like, you're just that now. But this band is the first band I've been in where I was like, I don't really know. Like, we sound similar to other bands on certain songs, but I don't really know a lot of bands at the moment that would be easily categorized next to.
Yeah.
That's not to say we're like better than anyone, but as in, I think at the minute it's just like, yeah, it would be very hard. Like, we find it at the minute with like, when we get asked to do gigs, it's kind of like, because we've got certain heavier songs, but we certainly wouldn't be suitable for like a rock bill, or we certainly wouldn't be suitable for like what's massive at the minute, the whole post-punk thing. Like, we're not that at all. In fact, we're probably the only band from Bristol that isn't post-punk at the minute, which you can thank Idols for, which is amazing. Like, it is amazing. But yeah, so everyone at the minute is kind of like trying to be post-punk. So, but I digress. I went on a right tangent there. Sorry, mate.
No.
This band is good compared to the other ones we were in.
Nathan, what about for yourself? How do you feel it differs?
I mean, it's a whole nother level to stuff that I've kind of done in the past. It's been exactly like Dave said. We've formed a unit. We've like kind of created a team of people, and you know, it's not just us. It's the help from other people around us as well. You know, it's the help from everybody who takes photos for us. You know, who does kind of all of our graphic stuff. You know, we're kind of building a family, and I think that's what we've got within this project. Is we've got that kind of family feeling, and you know, we just work together so well. It's like there's so much cohesion, and yeah, I think that's what kind of differs it from and it's just the dedication from everyone as well. Like, you know, this is what we want to do. You know, this is where we want to be, and we're all on the same page, and that's you know, in a nutshell, that's what's different.
Yeah.
And as you were mentioning, Dave, I mean, like, with your music being like so kind of unique in a kind of way that maybe displaces you from other like music out there at the moment. Like, when you started actually getting the gig post-COVID, I mean, how was the reception straight away? Was people receptive to it from the get-go? Or
Yeah, I think another weird, like, we did it sort of backwards in the sense that because of COVID and everything, we made sure that before we did our first gig, that people had something, like, we were already kind of in people's brains. So like, we released our first single and video before we'd even done our first gig, and we basically said, right, well, we kind of had this feeling, and you'll still stick by it now. It's like, as much as you can be great live, and they've all been amazing gigs, I think fundamentally people need tangible things to be like, right, well, why do I like this band? And having that material there to go look at before you even come and see us live. So it was nice, actually. So when we went to go do our first show, there was already some sort of familiarity. Like, it wasn't like, oh, you're just a new band. People had already had the single out for, I think that would already been out about 4 months, and then we were releasing our second single like the day of our gig. So it was almost like putting the band to the face name sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like, there was already the material, people were well aware of it, and now you get to go see them live, which I think again is nice, because there's so many bands, so many brilliant bands, that if you have to, like, there has to be a reason as to why people want to come see you. And if you haven't got anything in this day and age, unfortunately, you've got to have all of the rest of it, you know, all of the online presence, and stuff like that. So yeah, these gigs felt completely different. Like, it's and just sort of going back to your question, I'm sorry, I am rambling, but going back to your question about like how it's been like received and our gigs and things like that, like, the difference in these bands to the old bands is like, we, like, all of a sudden we're getting told that like gigs are selling out, and that was mad for us, because it was like, we done our first show, it sold out, but that was because we promoted it, and it was like we had to basically sell it out. And then all of a sudden it's this mental thing where you sort of click that more than just your mates like your band, And then you're just like, oh right, hang on, that's weird. That's a really weird sensation. Like,
I think it's the playing outside of our city as well, and hearing that the tickets have sold. Just like just been crazy. Like the first two tours, we didn't expect anything from the first two tours.
Yeah,
and it's just been quite the opposite. The first tour was incredible, like, and then the second tour, to look down and to be, miles from home, and people are kind of singing your tunes back to you in the front row is incredible. It is incredible.
Yeah. Speaking of which, you have a tour coming up soon. I believe it starts June 9th. Is that correct? Or no, but June 9th is the release date.
Yeah, June 9th is the single date. When's the first date, Nate, for the tour?
Yes, the 16th.
16th, sorry.
16th of June, is the start of the tour, and we're doing 10 dates across the UK. So we're doing London, Southampton, Brighton, Bath, Birmingham, Leeds, Scunthorpe, Sheffield, Newcastle, and Hull.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be good.
What expectations do you have for those shows? I mean, like you were saying, like when you play outside of Bristol, it's kind of you were saying like it was good to see the kind of reception from people who aren't in your immediate friend circle. I mean, when you're kind of touring like the whole like UK like that, I mean, like you get to see like how different kind of pockets of the country react to what you're doing. I don't know, is that flattering, or how do you feel about that?
I think we try not to have any expectations or any.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
we try not to kind of set the bar before we go there and think like, we're concerned about this, concerned about that, because we've gone to some venues with no idea, like, or we've been there for the first time, we've got no idea how many tickets we sold, and then we kind of go out on stage and it's a packed room, like, that's great, like, and we try not to have any expectations or kind of set our bar too high, like, but
because for every like rammed room, there are so many where it's like one man and his dog. Like we played what was it, like where was it, Milton Keynes, Dave? Like honestly, they treated us like amazingly. Like we had like this incredible green room, like that we were allowed to have all day, and it was just like this huge room with like a PS4 and like drinks and stuff and food. The venue itself was amazing, like this perfect huge room, and then we walked out and there was literally like maybe 20 people there.
Yeah.
And so I think what comes of age is, and our attitude is like we do the same thing regardless of who's there, because we want to make sure that those 20 people that were there, that you want them to walk away and go, wow, like Adult Leisure they were great.
Yeah.
Like we don't change it for anything. It's being in a band for so long, you learn to be a lot of humble pies, and actually that's the niceness of it. When you don't set yourself an expectation, and when you don't sort of say like these gigs are going to be the best ever, like you just go out there and do what you do as a band. It doesn't really matter where you are.
Yeah.
Like as long as you're getting the enjoyment, and I mean, if you can get a sweat on and play like a 6 set to like 10 people, it's just all the better then when there's more than 10. Sometimes it's 12.
Having said that, though, we would like a lot of people at these dates.
Yeah.
No, we do. We absolutely want to sell out these shows.
Oh yeah. Like I'm not saying we like we got like a 10 ticket maximum on our gigs.
So you I mentioned earlier the 9th, so that's actually the release date for your new single, which is called Bad Idea, and it's coming pretty soon from your EP, which came out, The Weekend Ritual, which I think only came out in December, if I'm correct. So I mean, what kind of made you want to start like recording so soon after just releasing such a kind of big EP?
I think for us it's kind of a case of and it's a bit of a shame really, because it's the era we're in the sense that like you have to make people sort of not to lose interest, but because it's such a vast variety now of music, and art's changed in the sense that you could be the best artist in the world and release an album, But you know, it's not like the old days where that's going to sort of survive you a year or even 2 years, you know.
Yeah.
Especially at our level, when you're having to gain more and more interest and provide people with sort of new stuff, we were just thinking, well, why wait a year to do a single, or why wait? Because also we'd written them all, so we were kind of sat there and we were going, well, why, if you've got it and it's good to go, let's put it out. Let's, rather than kind of wait. And also, I'm like that. My brain works like that. Like, as soon as our EP was done, that was it. I didn't listen to it because I'm just like, I can't, because it's done. And now it's just like, well, let's go on to the next thing now.
Yeah.
So my brain, I think, is the same as a lot of people's brains. Fucking hell.
We're quite proactive with so like we are like quite far ahead of ourselves. So we have got a ton more material, like written, ready to go, which is you know, it's quite a privileged position to be in, really, and it's really nice to kind of be like that. And you know, combined with the fact that Dave is a fantastic songwriter as well. You know, and he is just churning songs out. He's churning them out, you know. So there's not zero out there. So I think for us it's just like, why not? Let's get it out, you know.
Yeah.
The single's called Bad Idea, and I noticed from in comparison to the EP, I noticed that this one is a lot more I don't know if laid back is the right term, but it has kind of like more of a new wavy kind of synthy almost influence compared to, say, the kind of rock of the EP. But I was just wondering, do you think that this is an indicator of the music that's coming from your EP coming up this year?
Yeah, like I think. Yeah, I think it's different. When we first started, we sort of had our influences and who we want to sound like, and the first EP is very much just like finding our feet. So, like, Things You Don't Know Yet is heavily influenced by the Smiths. It's like got a very jangly intro, and it's you know, basically close enough to not be sued, but good enough to be different. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
And then you've got like Control, which I would say is like a very stereotypical like indie song. I wouldn't say that was punk or post-punk or synth. It's just like a classic indie song. But then you got Happiness, and that's very like fast-paced, and so it was very like a patchwork quilt where you kind of go, right, these are ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And I think now what we decided is kind of like, well, I write songs in like little pockets. So there'll be 3 or 4 or 5 songs that will all sound like Bad Idea. They could all sit in the family of that kind of sound. But then also we are really conscious, and the bands that we admire are bands that they don't abide by the sort of rule of like, well, we're this type of music. Like, for example, one of my favorite bands is Talking Heads. Mm-hmm. Now, Psycho Killer is completely different to This Must Be the Place.
Yeah.
So, but it's all Talking Heads. So that's the band we want to be. We want to be a band where it's kind of like, if you like that, brilliant, but we're not going to do that for you 10 times over.
Sure.
It's going to be something different, and hopefully something good, until we're in our 40s, and that's when we'll start making like the awful shite that no one cares about.
On top of like challenging yourself though as a songwriter and musicians in terms of like trying to keep it eclectic and trying to do new things, I don't know if you guys are thinking like this far ahead, but do you think also it's sort of engineering in a way a kind of audience who are receptive to new things at the same time, where again, if you're not feeding the audience the same thing each time, they too will kind of, you'll sort of cull the ones that just want to hear the same stuff and kind of gain a more audience who are appreciative of versatility.
Exactly that. I think where you see a lot of bands do so well, but also audiences aren't stupid. People like fans aren't like like music listeners, music lovers. Like you talk to anyone about their favorite acts or their icons, people they admire, you know, it won't just be the same album 10 times. It will be experimental. Like prime example, like Bowie. You know, Bowie was the artist to change, and then all the people that loved Let's Dance, Do you know what I mean? He got their audience. That's just pop, and then it was like, but it's not Ziggy Stardust, and it's not all this. But when you look at him, you go, yeah, but what a body of work! He's like a fully developed artist, and there's no care about kind of staying in a genre and things like that. I think as long as the music you're doing, you're competent in, and you don't just go mental and just go, right, I'm going to learn the cello and do something just abstract and mad. I think as long as you have the sort of adult leisure core in it, where it sounds like a song that we would do, you can kind of dress it up in anything, I feel.
That's always the core principle, isn't it? To make sure that the songs are you're not just doing it for your own kind of like self-satisfaction. You are trying to actually make music that people want to hear, but simultaneously also be experimental.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess one of the last things I'll just ask is about the new EP. So kind of what can kind of people expect from it?
Go on, Dave. Do you want to say that?
Best answer to that, Dave. You've written them.
I know, but I was just very conscious then that I haven't shut up.
No, carry on. It's fine. It's absolutely fine.
So the new EP. So currently, well, actually, like the first EP, in the sense that, like, the Bad Idea, I would say there's probably one other song on the EP that sounds similar to Bad Idea. Mm-hmm. There we have two others on there at the moment, and again, they would be like a feather to a bow, basically. It's like they aren't like Bad Idea, but they're still adult leisure. But I would say it's less like, for people who liked Happiness off the first EP, they're like the sort of punkier one. It's probably not going to be like that. I think as well, just because from a kind of viewpoint of where music's going, we were having this chat the other day, weren't we, Nate? Like, this whole post-punk thing is huge now. And I think when we were doing Happiness, we were like, that was our little, like, can we be a part of that? Like, come on, please let us in. Whereas actually, we kind of don't want to be like that. We want to be, like I said, go back to earlier, like with our type of music, it's going to be different each time. But remaining, and I will die on this hill of, like, it has to be catchy.
Yeah.
So many people, when they consider like art for art's sake, and it's just kind of, and I get it, not everyone wants a chorus and stuff like that, but I think there's a lot of denial about what makes people popular. And as long as you embrace it and you say you can dress it in whatever you like, but they have to be catchy.
Yeah.
And that's it.
But at the same time, you wouldn't be averse to doing a kind of if you wrote something that you thought worked as a kind of post-punky number, you wouldn't be averse to releasing it.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. If it, like, but again, it would be like, it would have to love it. It would have to be like adult leisure. But no, that's, I was saying earlier, like, it doesn't matter. Allowing yourself to be able to do anything is like the ultimate musical freedom you can have, rather than kind of pigeonholing yourself.
Do you think that's a freedom that's kind of offered to musicians of today, where you have an audience who have like kind of the history of recording music pretty much at their fingertips, and simultaneously you don't have label restraints telling you like you have to do this, you have to do that. So I think in a lot of ways musicians nowadays kind of have as much freedom as probably in history of recording music in a lot of ways. Do you think that's a good recipe for what you're trying to do? And do you think adult leisure could exist at like a different time?
Basically, you're absolutely spot on. Like, the music now is not dictated by labels. You aren't being presented a package of something that you have to buy all of. For example, like, they do this one thing, there you go, you like that thing, there you go. It's completely, like you said, to have access to every song in this day and age, it would be kind of rare to find somebody that likes a type of music. Yeah, it's so diverse. I think in regards to the label thing, adult leisure definitely wouldn't have been a thing. I think realistically, and this is another good thing as well, but like, personality and appearance has changed drastically in regards to what art and music should be about. So you wouldn't get anywhere like in the 70s and 80s if you looked like me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm a 33, soon to be 34-year-old bald man who's slightly chubby. Like, I'm not getting on top of the pops in 1978. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's, you had to be a certain thing. Whereas now, I think what is great is kind of bands like Idols, stuff like that, where you look at them and go, yeah, but they look like they've lived. They actually look like, you know, you couldn't give an Idol song to a 17-year-old and go, right, sell that to me. Because you'd be like, you don't know what you're on about. Like, do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But that's great, because all of a sudden now, the sort of, you're having artists who are talking about their life. And if they've actually fucking lived one, that's better than having somebody who's like, you know, just going, oh, well, what's, you know, let's talk about mental health. I've never suffered with it, but, you know, because I'm fucking 17. Sure. And, you know, not that you can't, but you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to be able to sell that to what I like to call, which is where we want to be, which is like the BBC Six music audience. Yeah. Where it's like, I don't want someone, you know, who's patronizing me about something that they know nothing about.
Yeah, sincerity is kind of the core principle, I guess, of maybe music now. Like, for music fans, I think, like, and maybe that is a common connection, is a desire for sincerity, regardless of what type of music you're creating.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's perfect. And thanks very much for your time. I really appreciate you guys taking out. Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up, or?
I don't think so. I think we've pretty much covered everything, haven't we, Dave?
Yeah. Well, are you in your car, by the way?
I am in my car. Yeah. I've just picked up an Aldi shop. So.
Thanks very much, guys.
No, thank you very much, mate. That was brilliant.
Thank you for listening to that episode of Post-Burnout.com interviews. We hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned for more.